you have to be willing to say that's not good and scrap it, recycle it, self edit.
What is up, Shaping Nation? This is Nick Torres here. And on this episode of Shaping Your Pottery, I got to interview Tom Budzak. Tom makes some really incredible sculptures and dotted mugs. In this episode, you will learn how Tom makes his dotted mugs and sculptures. You'll also learn about the power of repetition and practice, why Tom uses a variety of different techniques for his pottery, and finally, you also learn about self-critiquing your own pottery. And there's so much more in this episode, and I hope you guys enjoy it. I'll see you guys in there. Welcome to Shaping Pottery, and tell me, what is something people might not know about you?
Cool. Thanks for having me. Something some people might not know about me. I was a ranked tennis player when I was a teen, and I had aspirations on being a professional tennis player. I was like 18. I got offered some scholarships to college, but decided to stay in state and go to ASU instead and pursue journalism at first. And then I decided, fuck it, I'm going to do ceramics like I've been doing the past 5 years or so. So I'll figure out money later.
I love that. So tell me the story how you got started in ceramics.
Yeah, so besides like taking one little like art center class when I was like 5 or 6, I started when I was like 13 in junior high. Just we had a ceramics lab there in my junior high, and then I took art classes there. And then my high school I went to Chandler High School in Arizona, and our lab there was the lab for Chandler Gilbert Community College. So we had a pretty nice ceramic facility there, and I had a pretty knowledgeable high school teacher. So I just kept doing it there, and then I just never stopped. I just couldn't stop. I had to do it. So, and ASU's got a really really good program, so I was local and wanted to go there. So yeah, just kept doing it.
So tell me the story why you decided to get your master's in fine arts.
Yeah, so I got my undergraduate degree in 2002 at ASU, and then as far as jobs go, I mean, there wasn't like social media like there is now. You couldn't just like blow up online and sell your own work and kind of do it yourself. So it was like it was doing art fairs or working for a gallery or teaching. That was pretty much the main paths. And I didn't want to teach high school. So I pretty much had to go get a master's if I wanted to teach college. So it just seemed like I could get a job the most easily that way. So that was where my first intentions came to go to grad school. And then right when I graduated, I applied to like a lot of places, didn't get in anywhere. So I worked for a production studio slash gallery for a year. And then that's when I was like, I have to go to grad school. I can't work. I can't be an assistant forever. So I applied to some smaller schools and a lot of schools and got into a few and decided to go to New Mexico State based off the professor there, Amanda Jaffe, who's doing a lot of work I liked with tile stuff.
Can you give me like a rough number on how many colleges you applied to?
Oh, just like about a dozen. I didn't go crazy, but yeah, like about 12 that first year, and then about a half dozen the second year. But I really narrowed it down to schools that I thought I could get into for sure. And I wasn't like just applying to like RISD and Alfred and stuff like that. They're like the higher end places, or I don't know higher end, but perceived perceived prestigious places, I guess. Just like places I thought would fit my work better the second go around. The first time, I actually didn't apply to Alfred, but that first time around, I was like, I'm gonna apply, to UW and Florida and all these big places. I just was like, I'll get in everywhere. I just was like, why not? But later on, I realized there's like 100 or 200 applicants for like one spot. So it's like, and I wasn't going to NCECA at the time and like meeting these professors in person and getting face to face with them so they got to know me. I was just like, a random name and a random like applicant that nobody knew for the most part.
So, How did your time getting your undergrad help you with growing as a potter?
So ASU was great at the time when I was there. The studio was open like 24/7 for the most part for us that were ceramic majors. I lived there for for the most part. I mean, I didn't like sleep there, but I mean, I was there all the time. I just worked. I just practiced. I tried to make pieces. I just made a lot. I was there all the time, and there's a few other people I went to school with that were there all the time too. So it was fun. And then we were ASU's got there's fun stuff right around the ceramic studio, so we could go take breaks and do whatever if it was like Friday night or Saturday night, and then go back to the studio. So yeah, it was great. I think it's a little different now. I mean, it should be different now. It's like 20 years ago, but yeah, I didn't care about like selling work or any of that. Like I said, it was like 20 years ago, so I wasn't posting any pictures because there was nowhere to post. I was just like making work for me, and I think that was great because I just got to develop, and like all that bad work I made, like it's nowhere for the most part. It's you can't find it, so that's great. I didn't have to grow up in front of everyone artistically, so I think that really helped me like find a way after like years being there until what I really wanted to make by the time I was done.
I love that. Shaping Nation, if you could find a way to just be in an environment where you're making pottery all the time, your growth will be exponential. I love that so much. So, what is something you learned from your time here that you still use today?
My time when
At your time at ASU?
My time at ASU that I still use today, repetition, practice. I think one of the first things I learned was like to really get good at something, you have to do like 100 of them at least before it starts to like really kind of show the fruits of your labor. I remember like empty bowls, like we got free clay to make bowls for empty bowls. And this was like more when I was just hand building and not throwing ever. So I took empty, and I was like, I got to get better at throwing. I have to take throwing classes. I'm a ceramic major. I can't be a bad thrower as a ceramic major. I have to be good at this, even if I don't use it in my own work. So I just took as much free empty bowl clay as I could, and I just made like 100. I just made 100 just to get better. And then by the time I was at 100, they were decent, and I'm like, oh, okay. I just need to do a lot, and I just need to just go through it, and I don't need to be concerned about that first piece being good. I just need to make more because they will improve, like with anything, with handles or mold making or throwing, whatever. Like the more you do, the better you'll get. And that's something I try to like convey to my students when I'm teaching too. Like, don't spend an hour on one thing when you're trying to learn how to throw. Like, just try to make six in an hour and don't save any of them. Like, you'll just get better quicker, you know.
Absolutely. Shaping Nation, the more you make, the more you are going to improve. So, if you are struggling with something, just keep busting out techniques, then you'll get better. I promise you that. So, now you mentioned that during your time at ASU, you weren't interested in selling your work. Can you tell me when you start selling your work?
Yeah, so I sold a few things through Art One when I was at ASU, which is like a student local gallery that's still there. It's a great gallery for students, but I didn't really. I sold a few things through the art club, but I didn't really sell until I was in grad school, and I did a couple indie fairs. I think when I was like my second or third year there, just because I needed extra money and I was making a lot of stuff, and I thought it was good enough at that point to sell. Like, again, this is like that's like 2004, 2005. Like, you couldn't just open your Etsy shop online and post like sales on your Instagram, like, or, shock drops or whatever. It just wasn't like that. You had to sell in person or sell through a gallery. So I just, took me a while. I was like almost done with grad school before I was even selling, or trying to sell. And then I didn't really, I mean, I sold through some galleries and stuff right after grad school, but I think around 2010, I was like making more functional work. And that's when I started doing like more consignment, more wholesale, and doing some bigger shows like Renegade Craft Fair and things like that in LA, and some of the bigger local ones in Phoenix, like Phoenix Flea, to where I was like, you know, selling a little bit more to supplement my income. But it was never really my main focus. It's more just I wanted to be able to make the work I wanted to make, not starve, you know?
I love that. So let's talk about your pottery. In one sentence, can you tell me what you make?
Say I make functional one-off pointillistic work with decals and also ceramic sculptures in the same vein that are based off historical pottery.
So tell me the story how
I
you
don't know.
started
It's kind of long-winded.
making this pottery that you make today.
What? Say that again.
Tell me the story how you started making the pottery that you make today.
Oh, so I in grad school and undergrad for a long time I was doing a lot of textural work, a lot of crawl glazes, blister glazes. It was like we had to take glaze formulation classes, and I just thought it was like fun to like take, like do crazy glazes, not traditional glazes in my mind. So I did a lot of layering, and I liked layering and refiring work, and just kind of like doing it over and over and over and over again, kind of like a screen print, to where you do one color and then you get another screen and do another color. That's kind of how I was looking at my glazes in a way. Like I'd layer like an underglaze and then do a crawl glaze, but then I'd put more textural glazes over it. So like my old work or the textural work, I'd fire it like 6 to 10 times to cone 10, and then I down fire it, and I just layer and layer and layer it. But at a point, I was getting tired of being my own best collector, so I wanted to do a little bit more functional work that was still in that same vein of layering. So that's when I figured out like I like what do I like about texture? I like the patterns. So what can I do that's flatter but still layered in patterns? So that's when I started dotting stuff and layering it with decals, which made, then I could do more functional work but still get like a look I liked. So it kind of just, in my mind, it was just like the same thing, but it's like, a one, they're just complete opposites, but in my mind, it's the same. So yeah, that's kind of where it came from. It was like out of a need to like not collect my own stuff so much, or not have to. I mean, it was just wasn't, I wasn't selling a lot. So I had to do something to change things up. And I was doing it, I'd been doing it for like 15 years, and I was kind of ready for something new. So that was part of it too.
I love that. So something I found interesting is you use a variety of techniques. Can you explain this to me and why you do this?
Yeah, I just, whatever is necessary, whatever makes the most sense to achieve the form I want to achieve, that's where that comes from. I just like being able to do whatever. I like having the knowledge that I can accomplish whatever I want to accomplish in clay. So if I wanted really ornate spouts or handles, it makes more sense for me to cast them. If I want a square form, slab building makes more sense. If I need to make a lid, usually that makes more sense to throw it on the potter's wheel, things like that. So it's just whatever makes the most sense to me, that's what I'll do. I'd say, a lot, my functional stuff's primarily thrown. My sculptural stuff, it's a lot of mold making and sculpting and then casting, although some of that's turning into throwing now too, with more of my like wall sculptures, my like growth sculptures, I call them. So yeah, it's just whatever's necessary. I'll do whatever makes the most sense.
I love that. Shaping Nation, you don't have to be stuck doing just one technique. You could use a variety of different techniques, especially if you're trying to expand the way your pottery is trying to look. I love that so much. So now can you explain to me how you create both your dotted mugs and your sculptures, starting with your dotted mugs?
So the dog mugs, they're just thrown, trimmed, pulled handles. Then I use a slip trailer basically. I use a precision decorator one that is a little bit more rigid, that I have a little bit more control with the flow of the underglaze, and I just apply the dots one by one. So I usually do rows and do spaces in the rows, and then if I'm doing multiple colors, then I just go back in and fill in the in betweens, and then if I want to do 3 layers, I just go over that. So it's just layer and layer and layer. So if it's like an all black dotted mug, it's like I can usually do like 3 in an hour. If it's multicolors, it takes me, I always work on multiple pieces at the same time, but probably a multicolor one will take like an hour to do. So that's how I do that. And then the sculptures, like the gross sculptures on the wall that I do on the walls, are just thrown individually, then put together on a slab. The more sculptural ones, I just make a solid mold and then usually make a two-part mold to cast those. And I do that for the bigger sculptural pieces. I do them in casts because I don't have a lot of loss when I slip cast. It's almost like a 100% success rate on those pieces, not cracking or not warping. So if I'm putting like 10,000 dots on a piece, I don't want to do that and then have it crack. So that's why I started mold making those instead of just building them as one offs. So I didn't have any technical issues later. Again, what makes the most sense? Like making a mold for something larger that I'm going to spend 20 hours decorating, it better not crack, right? So yeah, that's how I do those things.
I love that. So let's talk about discovering your voice. Can you tell me about the moment when you knew you were heading the right direction with your pottery?
I mean, do we ever know if we're heading in the right direction? It's like I think it's a self-awareness, like self-critique of your work, and something probably in grad school I learned just to kind of challenge yourself and ask yourself questions like, is this good? Is this worth putting out there? What can I do to improve it? So somewhere around grad school, like I knew like somewhere some of that work I was like, this is good. Like I know this is good. Like this is good work. And so yeah, it comes from like self-critique and being self-critical too. Like you also have to be aware of like not everything you make is golden. Like you have to be willing to say that's not good and scrap it, recycle it, self-edit, which I don't know that a lot of people do nowadays with how easy it is to just like I made this, I'm going to put this out there in the world and show everybody, and then it's out there forever, right? So I still try to like self edit before I put things out there, because now it's like if it's out there and you can delete the post, but somebody took a screenshot of that if they liked it and they saved it, because I do that. I when I see stuff I like, I screenshot it so I can go back to it and look at it later. So yeah, it's just like self editing kind of thing of that's how I decide if it's good or not. But yeah, I still don't know if I'm making good work sometimes.
I love that. Shaping Nation, it's so important to self critique yourself because that's how you are going to improve. That's how you're going to find your voice and beyond. I love that so much. So you contribute your growth as an artist to being stubborn. Can you explain this to me some more?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's important to be stubborn when you're making, and when you start like the wheel, like learning the potter's wheel for the first time, right? For everyone who's ever like just started out, it's not easy. I don't know anyone that just ever sat down at the wheel and was like, oh, this is so easy and fun, and I'm making these beautiful pictures and teapots and whatever. Like it's hard at first. It's like learning the guitar or something. Like you sit down and you know like the guitar, you're maybe trying to learn jingle bells like the first time you're playing, right? Or something just really simple. It's the same thing with the potter's wheel. Like everything wants to be a bowl when you first make it for multiple reasons. And if you're not stubborn, you're going to stop at bowls. You're not going to get very far if you're just not persistent. So it's again, it's going back to like making repetition and not giving up and having like an inner fire to keep going. So that's what I mean about being stubborn, is like not giving up, because I don't think I realized at first what I was doing. I was just like, no, I'm going to get better at this. Especially with like, I go back to the potter's wheel, because like I was terrible at the potter's wheel when I first started. I just could not throw, I could not get it. I tried to muscle everything in. And now I just like, I teach the potter's wheel, and like I'm really quick at it. I'm really good at centering. I'm just proficient at it now. And if I went back and talked to me from my first like go around on the potter's wheel, I'd be like, you're going to get good at this. Like, just keep with it. So that's what I mean about being stubborn, is not giving up. If you like it, don't give up.
Definitely agree. I love that so much. So, what are you doing to evolve your voice even further?
So I'm just trying to push myself, get myself out there more, apply to more shows at the moment, make different, bigger work. I've always made work that I could ship, basically. I never really wanted to make these huge things. I was always like aware of like, I have to transport whatever I make. It has to go somewhere, right? I can't just make this like 10-foot sculpture with no idea where it's going to go. But I feel like now I can make, maybe not, I don't really want to make 10-foot sculptures, but I would like to make like larger work that doesn't just fit in a 12 by 12 by 12-inch box, which if you don't know, that's the biggest box you can ship at the cheapest price. So heads up for everyone making work and shipping it. Like that's the size. That's as big as you can go without it like jumping from like $20 to $50 to ship. Anyway, that's a side thing. So yeah, I'm just trying to make bigger work, better work, push myself to make more work, to not like make the same work over and over again, always trying to make new stuff and evolve, which is, the more you do it, the longer you're doing stuff, the harder that gets. You just kind of fall into like, this is what I make, but I always want to make new stuff. I don't want to just like make the same stuff. So yeah,
Definitely
that's what I'm doing.
agree. Love that. But shaping nation, it's so important to always be trying new things because that's how you're going to grow and evolve your voice even further. I love that. So as we're coming to a close here today, what is one thing you want to hammer home with my audience today?
Just make the work you want to make. Don't take everything that is said to you, if you're in critiques, if you're in school, to heart so much. Take it everything with a grain of salt. And then, if you're getting offered opportunities, learn how to say no. Not everything is good. You don't need to do everything. And I wish someone had told me that earlier. Like I used to get, like when I was first out of grad school, I said yes to every show, every teaching opportunity, everything, and not all of it was good. Like some of it like didn't pay well enough. Some of it just was a waste of my time. So think about things. Learn to say no. Do a lot of things, but you don't have to do everything. It's okay to say no, and it's okay not to listen to everyone. Especially when they're saying batshit crazy things about your work. Like, go, okay, that's not me. I'm just going to ignore that person, because not everyone has your best interests in heart either. You do. So that's what I like to end with. Yeah, or
That is
hammer
some
home.
excellent parting words of advice. I love that. Tom, it was really great chatting with you today. Where can my audience go and learn more about you?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Budzak, or my website at tombudzak.com. And I got some news and events coming up. I'll post there, so you can follow me, sign up for my newsletter there.